More and more these days, you'll go into a store and get to the checkout only to be told it's card only. Do you immediately walk out like some people? Engaging in this practice means it is only more likely to become more common. Today, we're looking at the scary consequences of a cashless society, why you should be worried, so stay with us. First of all, what will be the fate of the traditional cash businesses? There are many businesses around the world that traditionally deal in cash. One example is the marijuana business in the United States. Over the past 5 or 6 years, many states in the US have legalized marijuana, and the pain management drug is so popular that many states have more dispensaries than Starbucks, which is a win for the little guy. Unfortunately, though, many banks still won't provide business loans or allow dispensaries to even open bank accounts because it's still illegal at the federal level, which seems pretty archaic. The banks fear they will lose their Federal Deposit Insurance Corporation insurance, so most of these stores deal in cash only. So what's the problem then? Well, in a society which relies on plastic more and more means if we go to cashless, it'll be the end of these cash businesses. Are we really going to let the banks dictate who can and can't make money? So this move towards a cashless society will have implications not just on the marijuana business, but smaller businesses who also deal in cash. Coffee shops and small family restaurants, for example, could be doomed. Who's to say they won't be targeted next as the big conglomerates become more and more powerful? What do you think about big businesses pushing for cashless only payments? What about privacy concerns then? Stay with us as we'll discuss. Imagine the scenario. You've just done your weekly shop and there's a couple more beers than the average person might buy. So what, right? It's your money and your life. You can buy what you want. Well, what now happens if, say, for example, you go through a messy divorce and custody of the children is being contested? Yes, you might not have children, but someone close to you might have. The divorce gets nasty. We've all seen this happen. And your other half wants full custody. You know what lawyers are like, and they can be real pieces of work. All they have to do now is get a hold of your bank statement that might have been lying around the house or in a drawer somewhere to make you look like an alcoholic. Even if you don't have a drinking problem, they have evidence that you might buy a little more booze than usual, and that's it, you're finished. Going completely cashless means your banks know everything about your spending habits, which could be terrifying for some people. Shouldn't we have the option of people not knowing everything we're buying? Some guys might like to go to a strip club after work to socialize with colleagues. Some ladies might want that counterfeit handbag. Well, you can say goodbye to all that. What do you guys think about this? Let us know below. What about hacking? That's a problem, right? Yep, nowadays it is easier to take out a credit card in someone else's name than it is to forcefully commandeer their wallet from them, right? Having your identity stolen is usually just the precursor to other more sinister crimes too, like employment fraud, for example, which can turn the nation's economy on its head. Cash, on the other hand, does not raise these problems. What about large-scale apocalyptic type disasters? Oh, that'll never happen, we hear you cry. Did you not live through 2020 and the still ongoing global pandemic? These things are real and have the potential to cause widespread disaster all over the globe, as we've seen. If one of these types of disasters happen to knock out power grids all over the planet, what then? What will be the currency of choice? Because you can kiss goodbye to however much money you have in your bank accounts. We'll be back to the days of bartering when commodities like salt ruled the land. There will be no Amazon Prime to deliver your basic essentials then. Do you think you'd survive an apocalyptic type disaster situation? What would be your plan? Let us know below. And what about the banks? Should they really benefit? Banking is and never was free. They make their millions and sometimes billions each year by refusing to pay us interest on our current accounts. But it's fine for them to use our money however they see fit, and having the audacity to charge us extraordinary amounts should we even go slightly over our overdraft limit, a particular gripe of ours during university. And don't even get us started on the price of international remittance. It's already hard enough to find a free cash machine in Western countries countries, which is a scandal. Many people have this bizarre idea that banking is free. It isn't. This mind frame means that the cost of these free services starts to rise, and usually to unacceptable levels. As banks try to minimize overheads, we have seen thousands of branches close globally, which means the cost of using cash will rise and banks will try to force their business account holders to stop accepting it. Are you willing to be complicit in the continual rise of banks? We're not. Letting this happen would be terrible for the little guy. Reducing access to cash will marginalize the already marginalized groups, those who don't have bank accounts, for example. There are also people who do have bank accounts but live hand to mouth, so having to pay to use their cash would be a huge burden. And believe me, once we go completely cashless, this will happen. What about the elderly too? Don't go anywhere. Have you ever tried explaining Bitcoin or cryptocurrency in general to an older person? We have. It's extremely difficult. Most younger people don't understand it, so the older generation has absolutely no chance. Now, obviously, we're not saying crypto will ever become legal tender. We're just using this as an extreme example. As the world becomes more digitalized, we run the risk of leaving behind our elderly. We have a certain duty to ensure inclusion for our older people. Many older people are willing to use bank cards, but it kind of stops there. Internet banking usage for the older generation is still pretty low. You only have to think of your own older relatives. How many of your grandparents can you see logging on and doing their financial bits online? Not many, right? It's vital for those who feel as though a cashless society is a step too far to have access to cash and are able to live without having to relearn something that they've done their entire lives. Some governments have launched initiatives aimed at safeguarding people's access to cash, which is a start. There's still a way to go until we can feel completely secure that our access to cash isn't going to diminish overnight. What do your older relatives think of the transition to cashless? Give us your thoughts below. What about workers who rely on cash tips? As we know, there are still professions all over the world that rely on tips for basic survival, which is awful. But that's just the way it is. And to make this even worse, it's heavily one-sided as to which gender relies on these tips for survival. Women. Already, owners and establishments can get away with paying below minimum wage by relying on punters to top up their wages. It's particularly prevalent in the bar and restaurant industries as well as hairdressing. That's why in countries like the UK, tipping is not expected, nor is it done with any regularity. In Britain, the people are all too aware that tipping gives the employer the chance to pay less and maximize their own profits. So the Brits only ever tip if an excellent job has been done, which would tend to applaud. Imagine now then that we go cashless. You tip your waitress, say 10% of a $100 check. That's a $10 tip for lovely, smiley Jenny. How much of that tip do you actually think Jenny will see? The payment goes straight into the owner or establishment's bank account. We already know they don't pay their staff enough, so if you think the restaurant would give Jenny her full $10, then you're living in a dream world. How do you think a cashless economy would affect workers who rely on tips? Let us know below. What about the economy then? Stay with us. As we previously mentioned, if banking systems did fail even for a few days or weeks, it would cause chaos in our everyday lives. What about the economy as well? We don't yet know the direct impacts of what might happen as a result of switching to a cashless society, but you can bet your bottom dollar it would end up impacting the poor more than it would the rich. We already know the banks are not to be trusted when it comes to the economy. Just look at the financial crisis of 2008. As always, thanks for tuning in today, guys, and remember to join us next time for some more fine reveals. Bye, guys.